Good morning and welcome to the next edition of the FFS Podcast with myself and Fraser Watson. And this morning we're joined by Simon Roach, the SOAR Academy owner, runner or facilitator. We'll find out exactly, but Simon as well has got a good background in weightlifting, and he's from back when I was a young lad. I remember him and his brother really well, and their names being at the forefront of weightlifting in Pembrokeshire and Wales. So I'd like to catch it up a little bit on that about him as well before, and also talk about the great work he's done with SOAR and some of the charity work that he's doing as well. So good morning, Simon, and welcome. And first of all, the obvious question that we ask everyone: how are things going in this unprecedented times, as they keep on saying that they are?
Yeah, good morning, Fintan and Fraser. Hope we'll be both well. Thanks for inviting me on this morning. Yeah, I've been quite busy actually since lockdown. In my day job with Welsh Weightlifting, there's quite a lot of planning going on over for the next 18-month period. I've been quite busy in my volunteer role with SOAR, trying to support our members and thinking forward, plans to reopen whenever that is, and also some future plans we've got with the County Council and Sport Pembrokeshire. And also busy with the family, with no children in school. So going back to my teaching days and doing a little bit of homeschooling with Lily and Lucas, our two youngest. Yeah, so I'm a little bit busier than I normally would be actually during lockdown.
In fact, I forgot actually you were a teacher as well, weren't you? You were, that was your original career, isn't it?
I taught for 16 years. Did 6 years up in Holyhead High School up in North Wales, and then I came back down to Pembrokeshire, which was a really good move, and ended up in Fishguard School, Oscar Brogwine, for 10 years.
Yeah. So I know you've been sending out via social media, or Strength Academy Wales have workouts for people to do and keep themselves occupied at home. Have you been designing personal programs for competitors as well?
So for our members, we gave out about 50 sets of kit to members, which is used by them and their families, so they can carry on training at home. We didn't have enough to go around to everybody, but those who needed it contacted us, and we tried our best to give out kit where and when we could. The competitive stream of our members, so whether involved in athletics, rugby, weightlifting, powerlifting, are on weekly programs, and especially with the weightlifters, we catch up with the weightlifting squad once a week on Zoom to have a virtual session where myself and another volunteer, Jim Horner, coach and give some feedback. And then we've got two of our younger coaches, Neve Roach and Chloe Hood, are running our Zoom sessions twice a week, and we also make them then into some of our daily sessions that we put out onto social media, and they're open for anybody to take part.
I see. Yeah, I mean, it is keep busy, and I can see a lot of stuff you're doing there. If we just go back to the SOAR and what it is, obviously, we're talking and using the word SOAR, and people, we know what it means and we know what you do. But I would say, once we come out of this, people are going to be looking, I think, to go back to the gyms and look to go back to getting some, some sort of that social contact and back to training environment. And I have had people over the years sort of say to me, I've heard SOAR's really good, or I want to go to SOAR, but I'm not really sure what it is. And these are, people who perhaps aren't involved in sport as such, but they just want to train, and they've heard good things, but they're not really sure what it is. I'm just wondering if you are, and also as well as if it's acceptance to people who aren't sort of, weightlifters or competing in weightlifting. Yeah. So I just wondered if you could give us a lowdown on what SOAR is and how it sort of came about.
Yeah, so SOAR is managed by Pembrokeshire Weightlifting. Pembrokeshire Weightlifting is a social enterprise, and we have a set of community objectives to work on well-being, mental health and physical fitness. I know I mostly post on social media more weightlifting than I should do because that's my background. But most of our members are not weightlifters, and they range from 11-year-olds to over 85-year-olds. We have members that train for sports conditioning, for weightlifting, for powerlifting, for disability sport, for Special Olympic sport. And then most of our members train for that well-being and social benefit. So they come to the gym in twos or small groups. They enjoy working out together. And we try and encourage, we use fitness and strength exercises to help people to interact and socialise and really get that good well-being feeling after training.
So how do you get the balance right in Soreside? Because I know, as you just mentioned there, and we've done work together on this as well, there's been a big drive from you guys in the last couple of years to promote inclusion, to emphasise that it's not just about weightlifting, that anybody can come, it's open to all, that there's scope there for disability athletes to train the lot, you know. And yet at the same time, you have got, I won't say an elite group, but you have got group there training weightlifting to compete at a high level. You've just mentioned Chloe Hood there. Chloe, at whatever age she is now, has got numerous Welsh age group records and titles and represented Great Britain and so on. So on the one hand, you're promoting this inclusion to all, and ability doesn't matter. It's all about, you know, developing yourself socially and your well-being and so on. But at the other, you do have to keep a very competitive, almost stringent side to your training.
Yeah, it is quite hard to balance. And when we coach in the gym, it's quite a demanding few hours. You might have a really young member, you might have an older member, you might have one or two competitive members, you might have some members who are higher level or lower ability, or might have some special needs. And we're all working in the same environment at the same time. There's really good buy-in from the members. So when people come to the gym, they help each other and they support each other. When nobody comes in with headphones, there's no egos. I think it works because, you know, the coach obviously is really, really busy helping lots of people. But that coach is supported by the members in the gym, especially the more knowledgeable members, and they help as well. So for example, Chloe will train exceptionally hard, but also chip in and do a little bit of coaching. The actual sport itself, weight training or weightlifting or powerlifting, you do sets, so you have a natural rest period for maybe 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. And that's a really good time for people to help out and interact. So I think in a general session, people spend more time actually talking and helping each other than actually training because of the nature of the exercise that we do. And we opened 7 years ago, and originally we opened up as a weightlifting and sports conditioning centre, but it's more and more we've seen the benefit to, you know, younger children that may be autistic or have learning needs or have some disabilities. We've seen more and more benefit to people of an older generation, especially senior citizens that take part in our referral programme, and they get the same social benefits as anybody else. They work in a group and they help each other and support each other. It's far exceeded my expectations. I never thought it would have achieved as much as it has, and had there's such a good benefit for the community.
Yeah, it has it has done really well. You obviously should be really sort of proud of the work that yourself and others have done there. I mean, but just to touch on that, you said, I've been there a few times and done sessions there and taken groups there, and you do find what you're saying is that social side of it. Well, you go to some gyms sometimes, and it's all about everyone is working flat out for 40 minutes or half an hour, and they can't breathe whilst they're there. But it's definitely a lot more of a sort of a social thing, because they say you work really hard maybe for 10, 15 seconds, and then you might be resting for a minute or 2 minutes, and there is that there's not sitting around, but there is that chatting and that speaking to people and getting advice and almost sort of psyching yourself up for the next sort of round that you're looking at, or looking at the technique there. So it is a good sort of social sort of side of things as well. I can see why people sort of, enjoy that as well. But you do split up. Do you split up your sessions as well to have perhaps younger members only, ladies only sessions?
Yeah. But we do. Most of our sessions are open gym, so it allows anybody in at the same time, and that's how we've kind of developed that social side of our work. I believe. We got one of our volunteers, Jim Horner. He does a bit of coaching. He competes in powerlifting. I can remember talking to him in the corner of the gym. He said, look, Simon, I've never been to a gym like this in my life before. I've trained for 50 years all around Great Britain, and you've got a young lad there with some learning needs. You've got some over 60s over here. You've got some international weightlifters here, and they're all working really well together. Open gym. And then we have other sessions then for junior fitness, so junior strength and conditioning. The weightlifters kind of feed in throughout the evening at different times, so they'll come in small groups. And then we have a ladies only class, so Chloe coaches that's twice a week, and they're mainly ladies that they might have been put off going to your bog standard leisure centre, a little bit worried what people think. So they've created a fantastic social group within themselves. Really well attended. About between 15 and 20 ladies attend those sessions regularly, twice a week. So we close the gym down and it's only open to them. And then they've got their own WhatsApp group set up. They're in contact regularly. They do their own social events as well, and they also join in with the SOAR social events. So on top of having junior strength conditioning ladies fitness classes, we have an over 40s class, and again they've gelled really well and worked really hard and have had lots of benefit. And then from our fundraising last year, we raised money for some of our own work, which was set up 2 referral programs, and they since January, when we kick-started them, there's one, an Age Well plan, which is for senior citizens, and that's got nearly 20 participants. That's built up really, really well. And another one, an ability supported fitness, which is for individuals who have some sort of disability or limited mobility, to get them involved in health and fitness. And both programs were running exceptionally well. We were about to plan further sessions per week for those 2 groups, and then unfortunately coronavirus. So we had to close down.
Sorry.
Sorry. And then with the weightlifting, then so we do hold squad sessions, every couple of months, and then there's also opportunities for the lifters to progress into the Welsh weightlifting pathway and squad sessions to that route as well.
So the picture you have there is obviously it's fantastic, and it's an inclusive one, and it promotes weightlifting and powerlifting as a sport that's open to all aspects of the community. And as you said, it's not just weightlifters and powerlifters who come through the door, but obviously you had your own successful career in competing, and it's fair to say when you started out, the scene was very different. I'm not saying it was elitist, but it certainly wasn't as accessible, and it certainly wasn't as widespread in terms of inclusivity. How did you get involved in the sport yourself? And tell us a bit about your earlier career and how that developed.
I used to compete in swimming. That was my my sport when I was younger.
Through school now?
Through primary and the first few years of secondary, I used to compete for Half-West Swimming Club and for the county. And my dad ended up coaching in Half-West Swimming Club in the old pool, in the old Half-West Trust pool. My brother started competing in weightlifting with a few friends, such as Stephen Donovan, who's also highly involved in SOAR and with Welsh weightlifting and with British weightlifting. I started lifting some weights when I was in secondary school, and kind of found out I was a bit better doing that than I was at swimming. I did enjoy the swimming training, but it got a little bit boring just doing length after length and not being able to speak to anybody through training. I did well as a school age lifter and as a junior lifter. Really lucky, actually. Managed to travel the world, competing for Wales and Great Britain. I did well as a junior, which was under 21 age group at the time. I didn't really make it to a higher level at senior age group, and then I fell into the coaching stream. So when I finished lifting, I finished competing in lifting in 1998, and luckily for me, then there was no head coach in Welsh weightlifting, and I fell into that role through the coaching I was doing in weightlifting in the Holyhead Weightlifting Club, and then ended up in my first coaching role for weightlifting Wales at the Commonwealth Games in Kuala Lumpur. So I kind of fell into it at the deep end, and since then I've been involved in the sport for 30 plus years.
And what differences do you see between yourself growing up and the guidance athletes get now? Because obviously there's a lot more science involved, there's a lot more research, there's wider aspects of coaching. Certainly there's a lot more emphasis on correct technique and nutrition and so on. What about yourself? I know your family had a history of weightlifting, but did you find there's a lot less guidance around in your era? Are you self-taught, so to speak?
Well, yeah, I unfortunately I ended up having quite a serious injury, which led to a spinal surgery later on. Well, 10 years ago, and that was due to my technique not being as good as it should be, and having lumbar lordosis and lifting weights making that condition worse. So back when I was lifting, it was mainly 3 or 4 small clubs in Wales, and some of them were in your dad's garage, which was the case for myself and my brother. This day and age, there's in Welsh weightlifting, there's 50 affiliated clubs throughout Wales. There's 7 weightlifting academies. There's 2 performance centres. There's lots of CrossFit clubs. There's lots of strength and conditioning clubs. There's good opportunities for people to get involved in the sport in most large towns in Wales, and support from the governing body has developed. Support from Sport Wales has developed, and as you enter into a weightlifting pathway, you get put on a talent scheme, which is not only about developing the actual athlete, it's about developing the person. So with their kind of squads, it's not all based around weightlifting. It can be based around nutrition or lifestyle and other kind of key topic areas. Yeah, so there's I think the opportunities now are fantastic, and there's lots of support. Coaches are better qualified, the facilities are in place, and there's plenty of support.
And is it on the diet side of it? Obviously now there's so much nutritional advice around for all sports. It's a lot more scientific than it was before. But again, back to the era you competing, was that around, or was it just a case of I've got to lift heavy weights, so I'll eat like that? Did you have people guiding you the correct manners there? Were there many theories around then? I
think for myself, my dad, and my brother, we did our own kind of research on nutrition, and I think we managed that really well. In terms of having enough energy to train, enough protein to recover, and also trying to make body weight categories leading up to a competition. So I think we were quite well genned up with that, but that was like off our own back. Yeah. There were squads in the governing body, but that was just based around you meet and you train and then you leave. So there wasn't that much guidance back then. I think that might be the same for lots of sports.
Yeah, sure.
Going back to and touching on that, Fraser, you're saying what things were like back in Simon's day, and I don't know if this was in place in Ysgol Dewi Sant when you were there, but we used to do weightlifting at break time. I don't know if you know, Simon. Do you know well, Mr. Gravel, I know.
Hugh Gravel.
Hugh Gravel, yeah.
Yeah.
So on a like three lunchtimes a week, we used to go weightlifting in there, and he used to teach us the techniques and the clean, the jerk, and all that sort of thing. And then boys would end up competing for the school. You probably know Martin Lewis, Andrew Thomas, Sean Edwards, I think was as well. They'd all we'd all go and compete for the school. With our training on the hall with some mats down and some old weights, like no Olympic bars or anything like that, or very few. But that was a good thing. But I was saying those sort of training sessions we had, and that technique, sticks with you for life, like that. The technique of lifting and knowing, the science behind it. Although we used to just go there and do it, it was really beneficial for all sports and all sort of training, when we've had people on here now, like Tommy Reynolds, a young boy who was with the Scarlets West, was saying that the Scarlets brought him into SOAR to learn how to lift properly. We were talking to Ryan Jones, he was saying that when he was a youngster before going pro rugby, his dad brought him to a weightlifting club so he could learn how to lift properly, so that foundation behind it all is such a good thing. But with the sports all being out now, and the talk of coming back and things like that, are you getting a lot of calls from sort of organisations about anything to do with conditioning, maybe for rugby or stuff like that, or are people looking to do that conditioning before coming back to playing team sports, or is that?
Yeah, we've got some partnership with a few governing bodies. So Welsh Athletics signpost their local athletes to train with us for strength and conditioning purposes. So an example of that would, although James has gone to university, is James Tomlinson.
Yeah.
So when he's based in Pembrokeshire, rather than travelling up to Cardiff to work with the S&C staff in Sport Wales, he would do his main bulk of his conditioning with us, and also with there's a number of rugby players, the Pembrokeshire County swimming team. We used to do quite a lot of work with Scarlets West before there were some changes done there structurally. The exercises we do in weightlifting and the different forms of weightlifting and the types of conditioning we do to work on core strength, to equal out strength imbalances between left and right, posterior, anterior, is extremely beneficial for so many sports, and it can really underpin the fitness and the conditioning requirements for an endless amount of sports. Even the longer distance sports as well are involved in strength and conditioning.
I mean,
it's hugely beneficial, and I think Pembrokeshire, we're still a little bit behind the times, and it would be fantastic to see more conditioning going on with younger age groups to help them prepare to go into that high level sport, rather than trying to pick up strength and conditioning when they've kind of reached that slightly higher level where possibly it might be too late to help their future progress.
Yeah, I definitely say that anyone who was a youngster who was looking at, trying to make a career in sport or trying to reach the top of their field, or even like a good age grouper coming into, say triathlon later on, but even though, starting out in any sport, that, a good foundation in strength and weightlifting, will only do you sort of so much benefit throughout your training and knowing what's right and what's not right. And I'd imagine you see a fair few of people like that coming through, but maybe it's more the individuals, like the people we've mentioned. Sometimes it's the individuals that they've had the foresight to go and do that. But it's something I'd recommend doing. Or I mean, I know I brought our rugby team to you once, for a couple of sessions in the summer. The kids. So that was just basically just to show them this is the benefits of it and this is how you do things right, because so many people could end up going to the gym but on their own accord, and just seeing how much they can bench press the whole time, and that's it, like, or how much you can curl, and trying to work on your chest and your arms, like, and
yeah,
you've all been there.
Yeah.
I think if
some of us still do that, like, but
if someone can go to a club where there's a good, knowledgeable strength and conditioning coach or a weightlifting coach, you can work on your, and people don't realise this, that you get big benefits from working on mobility, core strength, just making you more robust, along with developing speed, power, and strength. So it's not just getting strong.
Yeah.
It's lots of other factors as well.
So you've mentioned Saul's involvement with Scarlets West. I know you yourself worked as a consultant to Scarlets, the regional rugby side, didn't you? Around what era were you there again, if you just remind us, say?
Yeah, when I moved back down to Pembrokeshire from Holyhead for 2002 to 2004. So that's when Gareth Jenkins was head coach and Wayne Proctor was the S&C coach. During the summer period, it was a great opportunity. I'd go to Llanelli 3 times a week, and I'd work with the first team when Simon Easterby was captain. I basically have three strength sessions in the morning, so the team was split up into groups of 3, and then used to have some lunch with the team, and then I'd hang on then for the rest of the day and watch Wayne's sessions. So whether they were doing some speed work or some interval work or some distance work or some skill work, and that was good to help my conditioning knowledge as well.
Because wondering what the kind of ethos was amongst regional rugby then towards weights and lifting, because even as late as towards the end of the 90s, it was a different world to what it was now in terms of the advice for strength and conditioning. If you were below professional level in the late 90s and you were going to the gym regularly, or you were doing just a regular normal gym weight up, you were ahead of the game. You were ahead of 90% of people were doing. It was only around the turn of the century, maybe a bit later, there then became a shift almost towards rugby players doing power-based, things like, the jerk and cleans that you get, weightlifting, the power-based stuff, the stuff that almost brought elements of functional movement whilst lifting as well. Did you very much have to oversee that kind of transition at Scarlets? Did you notice a shift in the time you were working there in the emphasis of what players should be working on?
Yeah, I think Wayne Proctor was quite forward-thinking.
Yeah,
work with the Scarlets, and I'd known Wayne from previous times, and he'd started doing more power-based and strength-based lifting with the players, but was keen to get some more kind of technical knowledge or expert knowledge, and that's when he invited me in to do some work with the team. I think if you go back to that kind of area, there were still lots of people thinking if you do weights, you're going to become slow. It's going to slow you down. You're going to become less flexible, and it kind of goes with other thoughts that it stunts your growth when you do it when you're younger. And I think some people still have that kind of belief, and it's quite hard to get.
There's still things you hear today. They are,
things you hear today.
Yeah.
And if you kind of had a look at any scientific research, there's nothing that kind of suggests to either of that. I can remember when I was in university, I used to train in Sophia Gardens. So Colin Jackson used to use that facility then, and it was power cleaning 140 kilo. And that was back in 1990s. I think being in Pembrokeshire, we're still a little bit behind the times, although we are making some good progress, but slow.
I mean, to put that into context, I spent time at Scarlets from about 2002 onwards. Finn will tell you, I've never really mentioned it, but were
you at the Scarlets, Fraser?
But even then, and we shared the same facilities as what the first team did there now, and at the time, the first team were probably the top Welsh side in professional rugby, and the gym was quite old and rickety. You know, you walked in, there were weights that had been chipped away.
Yeah.
And again, this was a professional setup now. And I remember you had, I think at the start of each season or the end of each pre-season, if you like, you'd have 4 or 5 tests, you know, fitness tests, testing your speed, stamina, strength. And the one for strength was purely your 1 rep max on a bench press.
On a bench press, yeah.
And that was as late as 2002 up to maybe in 2004.
Yeah,
You know, rugby was on the verge of going regional, you know, and this was an under 20s, under 21s, and then later what became a second stroke semi-pros. And that was the standard bearer test for your strength. And I'm just wondering if any of that ethos was still there when you, and whether you.
Yeah. Well, quite a few of the rugby players. We were basically starting coaching from scratch the technical part of doing an overhead squat, which was great for core strength, leg strength, ankle mobility, and you know, once you can master that exercise, you can possibly do lots of other movements well. Yeah, there was the same kind of ethos, and yeah, I think it's taken a long time to get that message across. I just going back to more recently when we opened, so for the first couple of years we used to do the conditioning for the county under 18 team, and they were in the WRU College League, so they used to go to the Vale.
That's right,
4 times a year for their fitness testing, and some of that was done in so to give you an example how that's changed. Their strength testing was max pull-ups, a maximum weight overhead squat, and then a max front and back squat. And in some of those years, out of all the college teams in Wales, you know, the Pembrokeshire squad were coming out in the top 3 with their strength scores. You know, they did. You know, there were some young lads there in that under 18 group overhead squatting 90, 100, 110 kilo, which is a big weight to have above your head, and then go down into a low squat. And then you have to pass a certain grade of technique as well as lift the weights in that testing. So everything was filmed from a certain angle. Everything was recorded and then sent off to the strength and conditioning team at the Vale. And all their other testing then was, you know, based on speed, power tests that were done in the Vale itself. Which you know, when you combine all those fitness tests, it's the type of training that you should be doing for power-based sports like rugby.
Yeah, it is. You go back as well. You know, it's interesting. But you mentioned Wayne Proctor is a name from the past. Did you know him through Surf Lifesaving? Was it, or because he was quite involved in the lifeguards? Are they got in Poppet Sands and stuff?
Yeah, Surf Lifesaving, athletics.
Yeah.
Wayne used to come down with his son and his 2 friends they were playing rugby in their local team. Used to bring those 3 lads down once a week for about a year, around about 2 years ago, to the gym to make the trek from Llanelli down to Haverfordwest, just, you know, for them to learn Olympic weightlifting to help their rugby, and also for Wayne to upskill on his coaching of Olympic weightlifting.
Yeah,
Wayne, I think you're right. You say that, Wayne. Wayne was always quite ahead of the game. I found it. You know, he was the first actual fitness coach to maybe bring elements from other sports into rugby. Yeah. Stuff like the S, I think they call the S&Q or SAQ.
Yeah, that's right.
The ladders, that sort of thing.
Yes.
Combined speed and stamina work. You know, I always found Wayne was very, you know, also had an advanced mind for the year he was in, and perhaps never actually got the credit he deserved for that. You know.
He was the Welsh Sevens S&T coach. I can remember seeing him in the Glasgow Commonwealth Games, and it was great to catch up with him there. Really ahead of his game. Knew a lot about. I used to sit down and have conversations with him, and he used to talk about theories behind different kind of practice of training and different types of periodization for training plans. And some of it used to go well above my my head.
No, it's just mentioned the Commonwealth Games there. I'm just going to go your experience on that. But I just wanted to, I also mentioned the school area, and I got sidetracked away. Like, when we used to train in school with old Hugh Gravel there.
Yeah.
Did you ever, was that still there when you were there, Fraser?
No.
So,
definitely passed, yeah.
Definitely passed. I'm just wondering, is there much of that in schools now? Do we have weightlifting clubs in the specific schools, or does it just, like anything, depends if you've got a teacher there that's got a passion for it?
Quite lucky in Pembrokeshire. We've got 20 volunteers in the organisation, and some of them do work in schools. Obviously, SOAR is attached to Halfrest High VC. I know there's the current changes with the school moving and the rebuild at the moment. That's a great link for us to access up to 1,800 pupils. We've got a really good local pathway where PE staff recommend them to come in, and also lunchtime activities, and some of the PE staff use the facility itself also. To carry on that involvement with the school, we lent them 10 sets of Olympic bars and plates and some other equipment to use up on the Tasker site until all the new sport provision and the new school is ready, and we're back up and running in that department again. There's one of the PE teachers, Lucy Griffiths in Milford School, runs a club there. Lucy's also one of our coaches, and she's also competes in athletics and a really good athletics coach in the Harriers, and she's got a number of athletes that she takes to GB events. So Lucy does some work for the weightlifting in Milford, and Justin Head is one of the regional development officers for weightlifting, and he's done a lot of work in schools, so more around taster sessions and kind of making that link between the school and the weightlifting clubs in Pembrokeshire.
And with you being quite instrumental in the what is now the annual Pembrokeshire Schools Weightlifting Championships, hasn't he, Justin?
Yes, yeah. So that's Justin kick-started the Pembrokeshire Schools Weightlifting Championships a number of years ago, and it's been really well attended. I've been delighted with that. When I look at the setup for weightlifting in different parts of Wales, I think Pembrokeshire is definitely leading in that area. High participation numbers, a high number of younger lifters in the talent pathway with Welsh weightlifting compared to other areas, and the events that we do as well. The key technical officials, such as Stephen Donovan, Darren Rogers, who do some great work with our local events. They're also the key volunteers that help to manage events for Welsh weightlifting and also British weightlifting. So we're really lucky in the county.
You mentioned the Commonwealth Games. Obviously, you've led Wales now as head coach into 4 Commonwealth Games. Have I got that right?
4 Commonwealth Games and 1 Junior Commonwealth Games.
Junior Commonwealth Games.
5 in total, yeah.
In terms of that environment, tell us a bit what that's like. Because obviously, we spoke earlier about how you might have to switch your mentality as a coach when dealing with someone perhaps who's working with disabilities or is new to the sport and so on, and then counteract that is when you're working with what you would consider the more elite athletes who have a chance of international recognition and competing on the world stage and so on. Tell us about what the intensity of a Commonwealth Games environment is like with Team Wales.
Well, we try and keep the intensity kind of mentally as low as possible. So, for example, if I go back to 2018, the Gold Coast Commonwealth Games,
yeah,
you've got a 4-year training cycle with your elite lifters, and maybe even longer than that in their long-term planning towards the Commonwealth Games. In the years building up, they've got a number of planned international events to to make sure they're lifting in that type of that performance environment. So whether that's European or world events.
Okay.
For Gold Coast, there was a 3-week training camp in New Zealand. A holding camp. So all elite weightlifters in Wales, they work part-time. They have some funding off the governing body, but it's not enough to train full-time. So there's a chance then to take them away from that normal life and put them in a performance environment where they're training twice a day. Their nutrition is really good. They've got medical and physio and massage backup. And then you also get rid of the jet lag and all those types of issues. From New Zealand, there was about an hour flight into Gold Coast, and you come into an unbelievably purpose-built village. 6,000 athletes and coaches, really pleasant apartment blocks, food halls scattered around the village, medical services, physio support, fantastic training facilities, and basically whatever an athlete or a coach or the team needs, you can have that requirement for that support. And then during the time when you're in that week or 2 weeks build up to the competition, you're in that taper period. So the day's quite relaxed. They might have a short training session throughout the day, and then there's lots of downtime. So it's just trying to make sure the athletes have got try and take their mind away from the competition, if you like, until the last kind of few days before they start getting focused, to keep stress levels low. So we try and keep the intensity or the stress as low as possible, but kind of wrap the athletes around with as much support that they need if they require that support.
Are there any games that in particular stand out in your mind for any particular reason out of the 4 senior ones or the junior one?
My first
or any venues.
Say again, sorry.
Or any venues even.
The first Commonwealth Games I attended in 1998 in Kuala Lumpur.
Kuala Lumpur, yeah. Really good, fantastic memories. I was a young coach, similar age to the lifters. Actually, some of the lifters were older than me. Really good friendships, really good memories. Good. The building and relationships of the team. Kind of that was the main thing there. The facilities there were unbelievable. The stadium, I think, was a 100,000 seater for a Commonwealth Games. That is pretty impressive. And then Gold Coast, you couldn't in 2018. You couldn't have asked for a better venue, a better area to go to. The weather was fantastic. The local people were kind of really friendly and really supportive. And obviously Australia, they do sport so well, don't they? Yeah. The facilities and the organisation were second to none. Yeah, so I think 1998 Commonwealth Games and the last Commonwealth Games were definitely stand out.
So you've just picked Kuala Lumpur and the Gold Coast because sunshine, a great nightlives and stuff like that.
Yeah, the heat definitely helps when you're weightlifting in air-conditioned training halls and competition venue.
I noticed there was no mention of Manchester.
Yeah, I mean, with your role now, when you're like in, you're talking about the Gold Coast one. Are you still hands-on coaching, or are you an overseer of it now, or?
Yeah, so more of a team manager role. Yeah. But also support the coaching staff as well. Yeah. And then my role in Welsh weightlifting is more based around strategy development and trying to development of the sport in Wales. So we've got a network of 8 academies, which SOAR is one of them. And part of my work is developing the work we do at those academies. So whether it's for weightlifting or whether it's for Paralympic powerlifting and or health and well-being for the local community where those academies are based. I'm just trying to kind of pick up different partnerships with different organisations, like the IRTH with different universities, USA Weightlifting. We were about to launch a national campaign with Help for Heroes around kickstarting disability powerlifting at our academy centres. But again, unfortunately, to the coronavirus, that's been parked for a bit longer. Yeah, so when I started working for Welsh Weightlifting 7 years ago, it was more kind of performance based, but I've kind of moved into more of an overarching role and more on strategy and development.
And how well are sort of Wales competing at things like the Commonwealth Games and on that national, international level? Are the results there that you'd like, or work in progress, or how do you see things?
Yeah, no. Well, last Commonwealth Games, we had 2 medals. So Gareth Evans gold, and Laura Hughes bronze. So Gareth, he's one of our more senior lifters, should I say? He's not old, more of our senior lifters. He's been in the sport a long time. He was in Gold Coast. He was the first gold medal winner out of the whole of Team Wales, and I think that kind of really helped spur on some of the other athletes. Unbelievable performance. So Ray Williams is our head coach, and he's also Gareth's personal coach. And in my role, I supported Ray in coaching Gareth in the 2018 Commonwealth Games. And then I used to actually teach Gareth when I was in Holyhead High School, and I got him into weightlifting when he was a young lad. And then when I left Holyhead, Ray Williams took over that kind of coaching role, and then took on Gareth even further. And then Laura, then she transferred from CrossFit. She was already at a good lifting level, and spent about a year and a half devoting more of her time to weightlifting, and produced some really good goods in competition. Yeah, so at that Commonwealth Games level, Wales performs exceptionally well. So we're quite lucky in weightlifting. We have a Commonwealth Championships every year, which is basically the same lifters that would be in a Commonwealth Games, but it's only a single sport event rather than a multi-sport event. And that Championships is held every year except for Commonwealth Games year. Last year it was held in Samoa, and we came back with a medal haul of 6 medals with a team of 7. And then if you look at European and World Championships, that's at GB level. We have a number of lifters that compete at that level, both at youth, which is under 17, junior, under 20, and senior ranks. They're not at medal winning, but it gives them a really good opportunity to compete at that high performance level, which has a good knock-on effect when they go to compete in Commonwealth Games.
Yeah.
And with the vision of sport in Wales and the new strategy Sport Wales has released, and the new strategy that Welsh Weightlifting has now released, we're not just about performance sport. We recognise what we do has a really good benefit on health and well-being, and for all ages, and it also underpins conditioning for different sports. So that's part of our work as well. But performance is also obviously important.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at things like Commonwealth Games or the Olympics or any major world championships, but especially those two mentioned, you got 4 years window that you're building yourself to go to. And I suppose if you were an athlete competing in those things, you just worry about yourself and about your own performance sort of thing. But if you're in sort of your role, I mean, what you could have is someone there and they've spent 4 years of it, well, more than 4 years, they've spent a whole lifetime to get to that thing, and they've got a little niggle, or they're just not in the game, or something there, and they have a bad day lifting, and that is it. That is their one chance, really, and things just don't go right for them. That must be heartbreaking to see. And I mean, that's you don't really think of that sort of side of things. But that's where you've got to look after your athletes as well, and sort of.
When you go to in the build up to Commonwealth Games, or when you go to a holding camp, or when you're in the Commonwealth Games village itself, that's the coach's role is to make sure everything is in place to give them the best possible chance when they come to compete. And when you're with Team Wales, you've got a HQ set of staff, and then in there you've got your nutritionist, your psychologist, your physio, your soft tissue massage. There's lots and lots of support.
Yeah.
If the athlete needs it. So for example, like Gareth Evans, he doesn't need a lot of support apart from a bit of physio here and there when he's got some niggles or injuries. His psychological makeup is really strong, and he copes really well in stressful situations. His nutrition knowledge is really good. So for some athletes, they need a little bit of help and support, and they just want to be left alone and get on with what they do. Yeah. And then other athletes, I wouldn't say are needy, but they need to be wrapped around a little bit more to give them that extra support to make sure they perform their best.
Yeah, and that's, I suppose with any sport, the sports psychology comes into it, and knowing your athletes and making sure with some that you're telling them you are the best, you are the champion, you get out there, you do it, and others will just be sort of laid back and go around. But I always thought that with things like the Commonwealth Games and events like like a judo or weightlift or something like that, where you've got a very short window that you've got to go in there and perform.
It's different to sport. In a team game sport, if you make a mistake, your team can cover it up a little bit, I suppose. In an individual sport, if you walk out on that platform in a big event and you might be 5,000-10,000 people watching you, it goes completely dead silent, and you're completely on your own with everybody watching you. And some people cope with that really, really well. Yeah. Others can have all the talent in the world, the best lever length, the high, fast twitch muscle fiber, can train really hard, recover really hard. They're not injury prone, and then they come to competition and fall to pieces and don't perform very well. So we do have a long-term athlete development program in place in Wales, but also in Pembrokeshire, and part of that is to expose lifters when they're young to international events. So, for example, for Welsh weightlifting, we go to a competition in Austria. We go to a competition in Malta. In Pembrokeshire weightlifting, we try and expose the lifters to the high level Welsh and British events. And this year we were going to take a team of 20 to Budapest, and unfortunately that was at the end of March, and it was postponed because of the coronavirus.
I suppose, yeah. It's like anything, isn't it? You've got to put yourself in those environments, and you've got to sort of simulate it. That's in right. regional competitions, and then sort of national competitions. You just got to get used to walking out on that platform, isn't it? And that's the psychology of it. It becomes second nature almost. It's. We've got young lifters in Pembrokeshire, for example, who are youth under 17 or junior, which is under 20, which are because they've had that exposure and the way they develop as a group together. They've got better composure on a platform than some senior lifters have. If I take Dan Davis, for example, one of our younger members, 2 years ago he competed in the Rico Arena in Coventry, in the British Development Cup, and because of the support he's had and the opportunity to compete in lots of different competitions at a young age. Obviously, he was nervous in the build-up to the competition, but when he got onto the warm-up and the platform, completely focused and nailed it and had a fantastic performance. Yeah, it is. It's amazing with some youngsters' mind that with anything that you you think they're going to be nervous with things, and they can just get out there and they've got, I know if it's confidence of youth, when you're seeing someone doing public speaking or whether it's performing or getting on the platform, they just... and
it's trying to get that experience in early and a positive experience as well.
Yeah, that's it. It's, I mean, if you go back as well, obviously, you're talking about the Commonwealth Games and your roles coaching. You mentioned earlier about yourself as a junior, and obviously you were doing well, and you said never really worked as a senior. Do you mind me asking why you think that happened, or what? Is there anything that happened to you? Was it injury led or just?
I as a junior, I competed in European and World Championships for Great Britain, and I was developing well. I think I picked up a number of injuries, especially my lower back. So I had lumbar lordosis, which is like an excessive curvature of the lower spine, and possibly due to overtraining. And although my technique was okay, it could have been better, and the combination of overtraining, could have had better technique, and having lumbar lordosis and trying to put heavy weights above my head, kind of impacted on my nerves and my legs. So it was 10 years ago. I ended up having a disc removed and my 2 vertebrae cradled. So I had a lot of nerve issues in my legs. So I think that was a factor where, although I was still training, I kind of got to a place where I couldn't develop my leg strength any further to develop my lifting further.
Did your own experience there, Simon, help you as a coach now in terms of securing the long-term well-being of athletes and maybe the less is more philosophy sometimes with training? Yeah, so
myself and the ethos we have with our other coaches, so we spend a lot of time on very, very low resistance, working on technique. The emphasis when a younger lifter comes in, we work on mobility, we work on core strength, and we work on general conditioning, and we work on a lot of light repetition on technical work. And once we see some good progress in technique, and it's only at that point where we start to increase the resistance slightly. But then, we're talking about really kind of low resistance percentages compared to their body weight. And when I compare it to, people still have that feeling you shouldn't do weights at an early age. But if you look at how stressful it is to jump off a gymnastics box and land on the floor, which is fine to do as a young person, but when you're doing a 30-40 minute session of some core work and some right and left conditioning to equal out imbalances, or some mobility work, or some light lifting, it's a lot less stressful. I suppose when you look at rugby at those younger age groups, and you've got somebody who's gone through maturation early, and they're quite a big youth or junior competing against somebody that hasn't gone through their maturation period, there's a big difference there, and a lot of impact in different parts of the game on a smaller rugby player. So I doing some stress in the body a little bit through resistance training at a young age is good to promote growth, and it's good to promote development, not the other way around.
I think the attitude towards youngsters lifting weights has changed now. I think there's a lot more knowledge around it. I think the concern was, certainly in my time going through secondary school in the late 90s and turn of the century, was where you would get, these boys, and there might be big boys their age, but we're lifting weights without really knowing what they were doing. It might have been a vanity thing. It might have been something they thought they had to do, and there was no real guidance there. I think now what you've talked about, these youngsters being put in an environment early where they're lifting light weights, but being shown correct techniques and building from there, I think there's a lot wider acceptance of it now. And I like to think the dangers attached to it are almost completely extinguished compared.
Yes. Yeah. If it's coached well, and there's lots of thought behind preparing for the sessions, and it's not just what they do in the session. We have youngsters that come to the gym to condition for their sport, and the first thing I ask them is, what do you do in a week? And then we try and find out, well, how much conditioning can we do on top of what you already do, just to make sure you're not doing too much training, make sure you're not overtraining. So if they're playing county rugby, school rugby, club rugby, it's hard to fit conditioning in.
Sure.
And then I question whether they should be doing that amount of training. So we try and match the conditioning to what else they do in the week and the other sports they play. And I think just going back to coaching weightlifting at a young age, also about getting the sessions right. It's about getting the planning right. So they might go on a 12-week block, which we kind of review every week, but they make slow progress. So it's not something that you do all at one point or a sudden change. That you're slowly developing to longer term goals. So there's a lot of thought and process in what we do to make sure we do it correctly.
How do they respond to that? Because we've been youngsters ourselves. They can be brash, they can be impatient, they can be overeager. Do you find they're happy to go through the slow process, some of them, or are there some who want to be picking up the big bars by the end of week 1?
Right, yeah. Obviously, when they come to the gym, if they do want to lift big weights, yeah. So once they've got to a position in their training where they've got good technique, we do let them go heavier at certain periods throughout their program, but it's very far and few between.
Yes.
And when you compare what they're lifting compared to their body weight, it's in a controlled fashion. It keeps them motivated. It keeps them working hard and ready for the next stage of their training.
Yeah, it's. I mean, the thing is, saying about wanting to lift heavy. Sorry, and as a youngster to get a technique in and stuff like that, it takes me back to things we touched on when I was younger, and you were like doing training. You also must know Barry John, as well, as school teacher, Barry.
Yeah.
Me and him used to train together all the time, and he used to have this pattern of like deadlifts and cleans. And I always had bad knees, so I'd always sort of do the bench press instead of that, I'd say I never always stayed away from that. And I think after an injury when I was about 35, I spent a winter doing deadlifts and cleans and all leg-based stuff, like with that core strength, and I had a few lessons. And I've got to say that the following summer, I did a coast path run from Newgale to St David's. And some big hills on that run there.
Yeah, there is, yeah.
And I ran the whole thing, and I didn't have to walk any of the hills. I ran it, and I got back and I just thought to myself, that is, I put that down to the winter I'd had of squatting and deadlifting and working on my legs and coming back from an injury, because I was sort of forced to come back from a knee injury, and you have regret there. Then I always think you've regret that. I wish I'd have trained my lower body more and done more techniques. Although we used to do it in school, and so we used to do things like that, but I was never always sort of shy away from squatting and deadlifting because I never saw the benefit of it. It didn't make your shoulders look nice, or or give you lats or anything like that, So I always try and explain that to when you're coaching kids now, and and I mean when they go, they say, look, you've got to get the technique right first, and learn to do that and learn the benefits of it rather than just smashing heavy weights, isn't it? It's
that's right. Saying that about that long distance work you do, we have a number of triathletes and Ironman athletes have trained with us or have trained with us, and when they fit in some strength training into their program at the right time, wherever they are in their periodization. They if they haven't done it before, they do say that, you know, it helps them in the latter stages of their distance work. You know, when they're maybe doing hill work, just and that kind of feeling a bit more robust in the latter stages of their longer distances.
Yeah, definitely helps.
And then also going back to when you said, like, when you started doing more leg work to support your training over the winter, and you found it of benefit. We find a lot of people that come to the gym have lots of imbalances. So, you know, are they a bit more mobile one side than the other, or they're stronger one side than the other. And a lot of the work we do, we try and kind of balance them out. You know, if you deadlift or squat or snatch or clean and you've got an imbalance, it can make you twist, and that can put pressure on one knee compared to the other, or part of your lower back or your hip. So basically, a basic kind of weightlifting session would be you do some technical work, you do a little bit of strength work, and then the second half of the session is all conditioning based. So it's things like Bulgarian squats, split squats, single arm work, more single leg work, a lot of core work, but doing core work that stress one side and the other. So we're kind of always working, trying to equal out left and right imbalances. And that's really good for sports people.
Yeah, definitely.
And for general health.
On that note, Simon, on this podcast, we've spoken to a couple of ultra runners and pretty elite ultra runners as well. And I don't know if you know Sana Duthie from Milford, but certainly one that's locally based. And I was quite amazed by the amount of strength and conditioning and weight work that they admitted to doing. My perception was that if you were training to run 100 miles, then you just practiced running. Just outline to people who are doing long distance running and who maybe, like myself, slightly naive to that side of it, what you'd be recommending them doing in terms of strength exercises to help them.
Yeah,
asking for a friend.
Again, sorry.
Asking for a friend.
We'd first of all just take them through a couple of basic and key exercises just to see what their stability and their mobility is like, especially in the ankle joint, because that dictates how well they can do a lot of exercises. So we start off doing a lot of mobility work, to be honest, and trying to ascertain what their core strength is like. We then start building up a lot of leg strength, and trying to. It's slightly different to weightlifting, although so modified weightlifting exercises and strength and conditioning exercises, pushing on the higher rep range, but not a really high rep range, because they're getting that benefit when they do their own training, and with some upper body work as well to make sure they're in proportion. So you can add in some general conditioning, and then you can add in some other conditioning exercises which help with the pull in swimming and help for cycling and running. And in the program that we do, quite a lot of these exercises would be in the conditioning part that the weightlifters would do, or that Chloe would fit into some of the ladies' fitness classes. So we can use the exercises for all our different ranges of members. I even use them for the over 60s, the senior citizens class that we run, but a modified version. I just go into that group. It's one of my favourite groups that I coach, and they train unbelievably hard. They come into the gym. Well, it's a Wednesday morning. We start the session 9:30. They come in from 9 o'clock onwards, have a bit of a chat and a get together, and then I put them through quite a grueling hour session, and they cope really well.
Oh, that's
sorry, I got a bit off track there.
No, I was thinking, yeah, it's good. Yeah, it is good. It is beneficial to try and get people from I think from endurance sports, to do weights, to know what they're doing as well. But I'm just waiting for when all this finishes. I think Fraser's planning on doing something like running across America or something. Like, all the questions he keeps on asking these people about, how do I do this? Just before we go on, so to the charity work that you've been doing over the years and also what you've been doing in lockdown, I just want to touch on something. I mean, it's you've mentioned like CrossFit a few times. You got CrossFit and you got SOAR, and obviously two different sort of styles of training. And it's quite funny because I've got two boys. One is 17, one is 20. One went to CrossFit for quite a bit, and one came to SOAR with you. And we got a setup here that they got one Christmas with the weightlift, the Olympic stuff and squat rack and everything. One will go out and will hammer it for 20 minutes. So he'd be skipping and he'd be jumping, he'd be swinging kettlebells around. And then the other goes out and he just works on his technique and his, and his lifting and his deadlifts and his squatting, and it's sort of more controlled and slow. Yeah. And I find it quite fascinating, really, that, the two different benefits there. Do you get, but I have seen, because again, going back a few years, people, I don't lift, or CrossFit's better, or this, that, and the other. But I've seen more recently, people definitely going back and forth between the two and training, in SOAR. CrossFit is coming to SOAR to train, and vice versa as well. Is that something you've noticed, or do you work with those?
Some of our members have left and gone to CrossFit, and vice versa. Some members do both, and then I suppose the majority of members, then they either prefer to go and do CrossFit or prefer to go and do the activities we do in SOAR. It's just, I suppose, down to personal preference, really.
It is. It's just it's just just different ways of doing things, really, isn't it? Or different sort of but
they're both different to a bog standard gym, if you like.
Yeah.
And they both got that community kind of feeling.
Yeah.
And well-being, as well as obviously the fitness or strength benefit.
Yeah, I mean, sorry. The point I was sort of getting to as
well.
Part
about being for both kind of CrossFit club and for SOAR is, I think the big pull is about you're part of a community.
Yeah, and it is. And sorry, the point I was sort of getting to as well is that they are both different. Obviously, for people who are listening, I know we get messages from people who listen say, "Oh, that was interesting. I'm going to try that out" or something. Is that they are both different as well? Because I have spoken to people who've perhaps gone to CrossFit, and then they wouldn't go to SOAR because they think it's the same thing.
Yeah.
But when you have a conversation with them, say, "Oh no, they are different." So if you don't like one, definitely go
that's
and
right.
Try the other, because although they're both weight-based gym and community, they are different sort of way of doing things. So that's what point I'm trying to sort of say is that if you put off by one because you don't like that hard work or something, whatever, or the way that works, go and try the other.
Go and try the other.
Yeah. Just as long as people are keeping active. I mean, going on to your your charity work now that you've been doing, you're saying how busy you've been in lockdown.
Yeah.
I think we're all like that a bit. We there's all these jobs coming out of things that you thought you'd never get to do, like you're getting to do. But so what are you running at the moment with Mind? You're doing?
Yeah.
Is that a partnership you've got, or?
Yeah. So we did quite a few fundraising events last year mainly for our own needs to support our referral program that we've got in place and to support the trip that we were going to take to Budapest. So this year, especially when the lockdown happened, we were keen to do some sort of fundraising activity for an organisation in the local community. And I may be a little bit late. I would have liked to have done something a little bit earlier, but I'm so busy with Welsh weightlifting and sorting SOAR out and homeschooling, we didn't materialise. We kind of originally thought doing something for NHS, but as time went on, there's been lots of really good support for NHS. So we wanted to do something a little bit different and support a local organisation which possibly like ourselves, who run lots of events, and that's part of their income. We're part of a working group with a number of charities in Carmarthenshire and Pembrokeshire, and with the local authority and with PAVS, a multi-generational working group. So we're part of a scheme to go into care homes to kind of run our Age Well programme in care homes, but obviously that's been shelved due to the coronavirus. And anyway, through that working group, we've built a relationship with Mind Pembrokeshire. So, they're the overarching mental health organisation of the county. When we started talking to them, we found out, they're celebrating their 30 years of work this year. We've been open for 7 years, so that's when I came up with the 37 challenge, which is basically a couple of challenges, different workouts or different walks, runs, cycles, with multiples of 7 or 30 or variables of those numbers. So that's our fundraiser at the moment in partnership with Mind Pembrokeshire. It's basically you complete one of the challenges and then make a donation to the local giving page. Hopefully people gift aid it, which some people have. I've just checked this morning, we're kind of raised around about £450 at present. So it's going on throughout the month. And I've also got good links with a number of gym suppliers and gym clothing companies, and two companies, Pullum Sports and SBD Apparel, have thrown in some gym kit and some gym clothing. So everybody who puts a donation in gets put into a raffle and can win quite a nice home kit bundle. Another reason why we chose Mind Pembrokeshire, a number of our members have mental health issues, and also some of our volunteers as well. And when I met with some of the senior and key volunteers, we all thought Mind Pembrokeshire would be a really good cause. One for our membership to pull together again and to have that community focus, and also to support a local organisation which will be struggling like other organisations, because they can't run the usual events they do to bring in their income. So Mind Pembrokeshire, we launched it last weekend. It's had a really good start, and so we've had members taking part, and it's been other individuals who are not members and not linked to SOAR whatsoever taking part. And one of the sessions is quite grueling.
I'm trying to get it. I'm trying to get it on the phone now, because I have got it here.
The advanced workout is it's 900 reps to complete as quick as you can. So a little bit like a CrossFit workout. There's a scaled version which some of our Age Well plan members are going to do, some of the senior citizens, and then there's other ones there where you could walk 3 miles, run 3 miles, or do the same at certain kilometres, or do the same at 7 kilometres, or a bike ride. And for the members or anybody else that's got any kit at home, a 7 rep max.
Yeah.
So the idea of the fundraiser was to carry on our ethos of getting as many people involved as possible, at any age and any ability.
Following on from that, Simon, obviously, there's no hiding away that it's been there are concerns for every sport now coming out of this coronavirus impact and the long-term effect it might have. Firstly, on some of your members, I know, as we've just touched on there, you've been very big in promoting, people's well-being and the mental health aspects and how SOAR can help with that. Is there a concern that people who have come to you and made great progress, right, who maybe, because not everyone does, maybe everyone has had whatever their situation in lockdown is, haven't had the time or the access to the internet to follow the online workouts or the programs and so on. Do you have a concern for people who have made so much progress that they might now regress, and that all the the positive developments they'd made on perhaps the mental side of things would have regressed also. Is that, I
am concerned about that. I think, if you've had some sort of mental health issue recently, and you've come into a lockdown period where things have changed dramatically, I think it must be extremely tough for a lot of people. And talking to say Barry John from the VC Gallery, who's got a better insight into it than I have. Last time I spoke to him, there's so many people in Pembrokeshire with mental health issues, and being in so rural as well, where people might not be able to get out and about and meet other people when we're not even in the lockdown. So I'm deeply worried, actually. There must be a lot of people suffering in Pembrokeshire and the wider community.
I think there is, and I think all these little challenges people have done, like you're saying, that people have been doing throughout it, and groups and have been organising, like yourself are doing here, are a good thing. They give people a little bit of focus as well, something to talk about, something to get online and do. I
think it should be said on that now. I think local gym establishments in Pembrokeshire, and I can't speak for other regions, have been excellent. I think. I know CrossFit have done the same. They've not turned back on any members. They've put the work in, and they've given. There's only so much you can do in the system, but they have given everyone who has at least access to the internet or opportunity, to improve their well-being through this. Of course, the concern comes, like I just said, for some people who have situations maybe we can't all fathom, don't have access to that, and that's where my worries would lie.
I know it's quite easy. I know it's quite easy to say exercise is good for your mental health, but I don't know if you haven't done much exercise and you are feeling low, and you do manage to go out for a walk or maybe a cycle or do some sort of an activity, it really does give you. It really does help to give you a boost. You've got the endorphins. It does help you to feel better, even if it's just for a short period of time after. I know it's easy to say it does have a good effect, but I honestly feel it has a really good effect.
It's amazing effect. You could be sat here working on your computer, doing things and getting in focus what it is and worrying about what the future is going to hold and this, that, and the other. And perhaps you haven't got the motivation to go and do a hard session because that just looks too hard. If you get out the door and walk around, for 40 minutes or something like that, it just feels so much better. Something simple as that, isn't it? It does. And maybe the problems might be there, but it gives you a bit more clarity, and rather than getting yourself all bent up over things, like
And it might be quite hard to actually. It might be quite hard for people to actually do that, to actually make that move to go out and do something. But once they do, I'm sure it helps.
I think we've been fortuitous weather-wise as well. I think that's encouraging. And even now, I know the temperature's dropped this week, but it's bright outside. We haven't got any sunshine. I think had this been in deepest, darkest winter, it would have been a different matter. Yeah. Problems could have escalated tenfold.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, I've had people. A guy I remember come down to us, who was. He's saying that, for us to say it's easy just to go outside and have a walk. And he was telling me that his armchair the arms had gone on it because he just sat there all the time, and where his feet were by it had worn away the carpet. And this was a guy who was very active, who was just could not leave the house, and things had got that bad, he'd come down to do a week's sort of respite break with us, last year. And then you listen to that of how you can go 6-7 months without leaving the house because things just escalate, and it's you've got to keep that moving. But going back to your challenge, Simon, and I'm having a look at it now. That advanced workout.
Have you done it yet?
I am actually, because I thought I could do one of them, and quite easily all of them. Being myself, I want to do the advanced because I don't see any point. I don't see any point in doing the others for myself. So, but then I thought I'm gonna have to train for that, so that competitive edge. So I'm gonna do it right, probably the day before the closing date or something like that. And
you could, that would be awesome.
Yeah, I am. I'm definitely gonna. I'm just because it's 7 exercises and it's 30 reps. So that's 30 sort of burpees, and then 3 rounds. So everything. So you do 1 session and then you repeat it 3 times.
Yeah, and then anything that's like alternating is 30 each side. So it's actually 60 reps.
Is it? Yeah, that's the old
ES each side. Okay, so when you see the one with ES each side,
yeah,
it's 60 reps in total. It's 30 reps on each side.
Oh, I thought I stood for easy. There we go.
I'll be saying that after you do it.
No, we were in the garden the other day, and we were looking at different. We were looking at this actually with my boys. I said, "Oh, I'm going to do that one." Then
get the boys to do it with you.
I will. And then we were looking at the Navy SEALs fitness test, and I said I could do that. So then next thing I'm trying to bang out 50 press ups in the garden, and I think no, I'm gonna. As we've just been talking about, build up slowly to this. I don't know injure myself.
12-week program, Finn.
Well, I think I've got sort of 18 days or something like that. I think to do it. I have. I definitely gonna have a crack at that. It's it's very worthwhile. And they say it's a very worthwhile charity. And as you touched on, the charities have been hammered as well financially, aren't they? Although the excellent work that's gone on, hopefully, has counteracted it. And I think as well with stuff like Mind and the other stuff, sort of with Get the Boys Lift, Mind, or any other sort of mental health charity. Sometimes it's just the awareness as well. Is you hear people talking about it, and that if you Google it and you look on it, there's things to help you out on it. It's the talking and the awareness sometimes is a bigger help to some people, that needs a boost on it. But that's all very good. I just want to mention something to you as well now, right? Because I'm stealing your ideas. We have got a raffle that we were planning on doing on a challenge as well.
Are you?
So, but this will probably be post lockdown because things aren't in place for it. And I was along the same lines as you. I think, I should do something. So I haven't stolen your idea there of raffling something off,
I'm quite enjoying seeing lots of different people take part in it as well, which is quite rewarding. Rewarding, yeah.
Oh, it is, isn't it? When you see the people to do it, and especially as well for people that you don't use the gym or you haven't seen before, that's quite.
Right.
Yeah. It's quite sort of it is rewarding, isn't it?
It's good. It's really good. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Anything you want to add on to that phrase?
Very, very quick one to finish from me. So I think weightlifting, is that perhaps a sport where competitions can return earlier than maybe others? Because it does seem to me a sport where you can practice the social distancing, which we all expect to still be in place when sport returns. Obviously, if you're stringent with the hygiene element, you can clean the kit, clean it down after use by each athlete and so on. Do you think there's maybe hope that weightlifting competitions can return sooner than, say, team sports where direct contact with another individual is required?
Well, for competitions, I've been working with British Weightlifting and Sport Wales, and we've designed a new delivery of competition.
Right.
So with that method, social distancing can be done exceptionally well.
Yeah.
And we reduce touch points as well. So basically, a traditional weightlifting competition, you have a warm-up area, which might have 8 or 10 bars on, and people would be sharing the bars, and you have a competition platform, and everybody uses the same competition platform. So with the new delivery, you'll basically have no competition platform. You'll have a big hall set up, for example, with 10 platforms. So it's 10 sets of weights, 10 bars.
Yeah.
and you have a referee channel down the middle. Everything's spaced out. Well, it would be 3 meters apart rather than 2, because you need room to change weights. You have one lifter on each platform, so there's 10 platforms, 10 lifters in a group, one coach per lifter with social distancing, and you warm up and do your competition where you actually are. So you still have the same format, same timing. So if I was the 5th lifter on, I'd still be the 5th lifter on, but I've just lifted my area. Finton, if you were lifting a heavy weight, you might be the 15th lifter on. So you'd be timing your warm up to coincide when your name is called. And then Fraser, if you were like a higher level lifter, you might be the 30th lifter to lift, the last lifter to lift in that group. And you time your warm up to happen a little bit later on. And the referee would move to you to watch your lift when you're called in the rotation. And then just things like the coach wears the gloves, the coach loads the bar, so the weights don't need to be cleaned. The only thing that needs to be cleaned is a bar, and they'll have a thorough clean. And if you cycle male and female, they use different types of bars. So when one group is competing, the other bar can be clean. So we got a new delivery to put in place. But in terms of when that happens, it's all down to Welsh government announcements.
Absolutely, yeah. We're all in their hands at the moment.
Yeah. I in my role with Welsh Weightlifting, I am on a working group for indoor sport, but there's no developments there at the time being, and if there was, I couldn't share it anyway.
Well, obviously you couldn't share it. So when you open the gym then? you be first open. Yeah, I mean, people are dying to get back in it. I know people are starting to make sort of plans now. We're seeing a lot more. The last 2 days, 3 days, I've seen a lot more calls from a phone being totally dead to people ringing up now and saying, "Oh, we're wondering if we can do this the end of July or August, or are you running this event later on in the year? Can we sign up for it?" So people are looking to get back, but at the moment we're still saying, well, we're not taking any money off people or anything, because we just, we don't know, do we?
No, I know. So I know. Yeah. I did a survey with the SOAR members about returning back to the gym. Yeah. And one of the questions was around, would you, when the restrictions have eased appropriately and the gym is back up, and will you return back to the gym to train, or would you prefer to borrow some kit and stay training at home, or would you not return to the gym at all? And the majority, it was about 75% wanted to return to the gym, and then the remainder then wanted to borrow kit to have at home, either because they're shielding themselves or because there's another family member shielding.
Yeah, it's fair enough.
Yeah, which is
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely an appetite for people to return, isn't it?
And then I've got other people telling me they're absolutely desperate to come back.
Yeah.
Which is good.
Yeah, it is good. It is good. It's nice to be missed, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right. So, anything you want to add, Simon? Anything you want to sort of?
No, that's great. I really enjoyed catching up this morning.
Oh no, it's been brilliant. It's fascinating thing. I love all different sports, and I do think that lifting is a fundamental thing behind all sort of sports. Obviously you have the sports people who do lift, the lifters who that is their thing, and they go out there. But the actual ethos behind it, and the actual technique and the conditioning behind it sits behind almost everything to an extent. And so many people could learn from people like yourselves, So
I normally coach in the gym twice a week, and I absolutely love it. Yeah. And especially when the gym's busy, from 4 o'clock to 8 o'clock, and I go home and I'm still buzzing.
That's good. Right, what we're going to do now is just to finish off, we ask you a few questions, lockdown, lowdown. So we're stuck in lockdown, or when we come out, what you would prefer in an ideal world. So we're stuck in lockdown for another 3 weeks. I'm going to start off nice and easy here now. Would you give up your social media or your TV?
My TV.
You'd give up your TV?
Yeah.
Oh. We're getting a few more people giving up the TV, aren't they? Yeah. In the old weightlifting world, the snatch or the jerk?
Snatch.
You'd give that up?
Oh, no, sorry. Oh, no, but I preferred snatch. I'd give the jerk up, yeah.
Yeah. All right. We've talked about both these areas now. North or South Wales?
Oh, can I skip that one?
Well, you've got to pick one now. You know?
Which would I give up?
Yeah, if you couldn't go to any of them, or where's your heart lie? Holyhead, or North or South Wales?
Yeah, my heart's in Pembrokeshire, so I give up North Wales.
Yeah. I tell you what, I'll let you not say South Wales, say Pembrokeshire,
Pembrokeshire, yeah, that's good.
Right. So STP, Taskers, or Harvard West High?
Which would I give up?
Which would you give up if you could take things back a couple of years?
Taskers.
So you take Harvard West High over Taskers? Very progressive of you.
I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why another time.
It said to his history, yeah.
Yeah.
I picked that up.
Yeah. And on the last one then, for you personally, coaching or competing?
I really enjoy both, but I enjoy the coaching more, so I'd give up the competing.
Yeah, coaching. Yeah, that's great. And it's good to hear that as well, because so many people miss the competing so much, that it sort of affects them, and the coaching is just something that they do, isn't it? Because they want to be involved in it, but you could tell that you love the coaching, like
I do.
As much as you love the competing, but you love the coaching, like
definitely.
That's awesome. Hey, good to catch up with you. Hopefully see you in person sometime.
Yeah, hopefully.
when the world returns, And
thank you very much, both.
I'll do that.
Take care, mate.
We're both.